Okay, we have everybody ready here. It's good to have a forum tonight. Glad to see Commissioner Orr back after her surgery and still on recovery. So we're all five back here together, so I'm thankful for that. I'd like to call this meeting to order for the December 16, 2013 meeting here. I'd like to remind the members of the County Board of Commissioners that you be advised hereby their duty under the State Government Ethics Act to avoid conflicts of interest and appearance of such conflict, and further are instructed to refrain from participating in any matter coming before this Board of County Commissioners with respect to which there is a conflict of interest or appearance of such conflict. I heard somebody say one time in the meeting, if it stinks, don't bother. So just stay away from that. With that, this time I'd like to recognize Commissioner Williams, if he'd ask the invocation, and ask Commissioner Eller if he'd lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Everyone stand, please.
Merciful and gracious God, we thank you for this beautiful day, Lord. We thank you, Lord, for people that's come out, Lord, to work with us and ask us, Lord, for help and to help us, Lord. And we just ask you that you go with us through this meeting, Lord. We'll do the right thing for all of Graham County, Lord. And we know, merciful God, Lord, without you that we can do nothing. We know, Lord, what you've done for us, Lord, and we thank you for that, Lord. And we thank you, Lord, that you let Connie come and be back with us tonight, Lord, and that you just keep healing her, Lord. And Lord, we just thank you for the season of what it really means, Lord, when your son was born to save all of us from a burning hell if we accept you, Lord. And we thank you for that, Lord. And we know that the season's got out of hand, but we just pray that people remembers really, really what the season means. Lord, in your holy and gracious name, amen.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. All right, this time we would entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda, but I believe there's one change, Ms. Clerk.
That is correct. We need to add Rick Davis to the agenda. If you want to do so, we can do it as 6A.
All right, is that approved? We need approval of the board. 6A will be Mr. Rick Davis, and he's going to give us an update from the great organization.
Would that not just be this, you have to put it in public comment?
I think he's on the agenda in the other meeting, didn't get to speak. So if we could do that, would that be all right? I mean, is
You
that
just wanted
okay?
to speak before the meeting.
Yeah. Okay, so we have that one change. Okay, any other changes?
NBA high.
I think it's 6A.
6A.
Let's stay with it. All right, then, that's what we'll do. Do we have a motion then that we have the approval of the agenda at this point with those changes?
So moved.
Have a motion? Second. We have a second. Any conversation? All approved? All, yes, okay. All right, this time then, I have to turn it over to our clerk. Yearly, we're required, she'll give specifications on this.
Once a year, we have a reappointment of a chair and our vice chair for the Board of Commissioners. So at this time, I need a motion for the reappointment of the chairman.
Make a motion we appoint Mr. Mike Edwards.
Second.
Okay, we have, I don't have to, no, I said, okay, we have a motion. You have to do this.
All in favor? Okay, turn it back over to the chair, please.
Okay, that was done correctly? All right.
And we also need to put the vice chairman.
And the vice
Vice chair.
chair, he can go
Very
back
good.
to the,
Okay, at this time we'll entertain this for a motion for vice chair.
I make a motion, leave Julie on
There's a motion, have a second. Any comment, question? All approved? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Can we get that done?
I go back just as fast as I can, yeah.
Okay. All right, have that taken care of. This will be the last go round for me and you. So
We've got another year for this.
another year if we live.
Year from tonight, we're history.
A year from tonight, we're history. Sounds pretty fine to me. All right, with that, at this time, would we have a motion to entertain? You have those minutes before you, the approval of the minutes for the regular and workshop meetings of November 18th.
So move.
Have a motion?
Second.
Have a second. Any questions, comment, or changes? All approve? All opposed? Thank you. This time we'll recognize Mr. Rick Davis. He's going to give us an update on the great organization. Welcome, Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Nice to meet you. Thank you very much.
Mr. Edwards, I do appreciate you making room on the agenda tonight
Yes, sir.
for this update, and I appreciate it very much. I appreciate you, Board of Commissioners, and yeah, it is great being a grandpa.
Yeah.
So I just realized how wonderful that is to be called whatever Charlotte Ann wants to call me when she gets to that point. So that'll be good.
That's my baby you're talking about, so
I understand that, Donna. I think most folks in the room are familiar with the great organization and the accomplishments that has taken place within a short amount of time, really, when you think about it, 2008 to 2013. 5 years has gone by very quickly and very fast. I appreciate the support that the Graham County Board of Commissioners has given to the great organization and your involvement in its activities. I have provided you with some information, in particular on the front page is just an overview of the organization and some of the, well, first of all, the committees in the upper left. There's a committee that is appropriate for anyone who wants to volunteer their time in serving and making and helping improve the quality of life for Graham County citizens. That's the goal of the great organization. Some of the projects, some of the major projects are listed in the upper right, and then in the yellow there is just a few bulleted items about some of the major accomplishments of the organization. Over the period of 5 years, well, I've not added a big grant into that one, so I haven't updated that, but I will. But over a period of 5 years, over $4 million has been brought into Graham County for projects that have been endorsed and through collaborative efforts of the great organization. That doesn't mean that Greg has written all of those grants and proposals, but it's through the partnerships that have been alluded to today and tonight that shows you what can take place when people work together for a common vision and a common mission. So that's one of the major accomplishments, I think, of the organization, is that there is a common vision and a common mission for Graham County. One of the key, I guess the premier project of the great organization, how many of you know about the Dolly Parton Imagination Library? And you probably have supported it in some way or the other through personal donations or maybe through reading one of the books that comes to a grandchild or a child or a neighbor every month if they are a Graham County resident and if they are in the age of 0 through 5 years old. It's free to Graham County children. All you have to do is register for it. And that project has been supported by the businesses and the individuals in Graham County and by some grant funds that have come into the organization itself. I will not even attempt to go through all of the activities and accomplishments that's listed for you on the next couple of pages, but there are a couple that I would like to highlight in addition to the Imagination Library project. And that is, one of those is the 21st Century Community Learning Center grant. And Mr. Edwards, I know you're very familiar with this particular grant because at one point in time, I think you managed this after-school program. But last year, GREAT in collaboration with Graham County Schools, submitted a grant to the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction for after-school programs at 4 locations in Graham County. We were very, very fortunate in being able to be one of the county's school systems that was selected for a 4-year program that has just started. That means for Graham County children and for Graham County schools, a total of $1.36 million that will be coming into the county. That's a pretty good accomplishment for a little county like Graham. The school system serves as the fiscal agent for this. GREAT is the nonprofit organization that partners with the school system because there had to be a nonprofit that partnered with the school system in its application. So for the next 4 years, you can see this year, Graham County Schools will be receiving $400,000, year 2, $400,000. Then it decreases year 3 to $320,000, and year 4 to $240,000. So the 4 locations are the 3 schools plus the Secor Valley Center after-school program over in Secor Valley. Another focus that I would like to mention is a project that's been in the works for many, many years, and that is the Santigma Bike Trail project. And this particular project came out of the Great Recreation, Natural Resources, and Water Quality Committee. And the Forest Service has worked with the organization and with county government in setting aside this particular area for the Santigma Bike. So that's going to open, hopefully, in the spring of 2014. It's practically been cleared. Everything's been cleared. And William, why don't you here? I think that's the area y'all are talking. Long Hungry area?
Maybe I'm not,
Oh,
I'm
okay.
required.
Okay, all right, I'm sorry, I was confused there. But there is some logging that's going to be opened up in the Long Hungry area for logging for this particular area.
Will that,
Pardon me?
will that follow like the old road around through there pretty well?
It does. It follows the existing logging roads and trails. In fact, there's not any new ones unless there's some connectors that have to be built, but it's practically in place now, isn't it, Joe? So it's just a matter of officially opening up that. The signage has already been ordered, and so it's just a matter of getting it open and getting people out there using that particular thing. Of course, the clean sweep activity that Lisa now is chairing, that's been going on for several years, and that's always a project that the GREAT organization does 2 times a year, along with the Lake Santigma litter cleanup. The recycling program, you're pretty familiar with Mr. David Dodson heading up that. And then one of the areas that I particularly was interested in and still interested in is increasing the availability of high-speed internet access to our citizens here in Graham County. There's been some progress made, but there's still a lot more that needs to be made. There's still a lot of little coves and hollows that, the access is not there. And our kids need it, our businesses need it, our entrepreneurs need it for their businesses and their startup. The 129 Rodney Moore Bypass project, that was a great initiated project with the town of Robbinsville, and initially started as a NC STEP project. So over a period of about 3 years, the Reimagining Robbinsville document was produced. Y'all were involved in some of those workshops. The Robbinsville pedestrian connectivity plan, and over $600,000 was put into that particular project. And that, of course, did not flow through the GREAT organization, but those were funds from the NC Rural Center that flowed through the town of Robbinsville, NC DOT services.
Have you had any complaints on that project?
Not directly to me, Raymond.
You mean nobody said nothing to you about
I have not had any complaints directly to me, but I'd be glad to talk with you at some point.
Flyer badge in the middle of the road.
Yeah. So, another partnership that we just recently formed is with the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indian, and especially with T.J. Holland and the Junaluska Museum. And the organization is serving as the physical agent for some projects that they have going on. And one in particular that is really, I think is going to be really exciting is the Fort Montgomery project, the Fort Hill project. The archaeological survey there, trying to find exactly where the initial fort was. So that's going to be something that's going to be really great, I think. One of the major accomplishments that I think a great organization has been representation of Graham County at many meetings that you guys have not been able to attend, or in the past you did not have the personnel to attend. Now with Indy Cable and Greg and others, there's been more involvement, and Ms. Edwards and you guys I know serve on committees. There's been more involvement, I think, with Graham County and it being represented at the table. Because you know as well as I do, if you're not at the table, you might get a crumb. In this day and time, you might not get a crumb because everybody's trying to go after that money. So it's so very important to be represented. We take that task seriously in representing Graham County on a very positive note. How many of you guys would invest in something that gave you a return if you invested $1 and you got 51 back? Billy, would you invest in something where you put $1 in and you got $51 back?
You know who I can?
I can tell you what's happened with the great organization for the year 2013. My employment is a part-time employment. When I retired from the school system in 2008, I decided, well, I need to get involved in an organization that gives back to Graham County. That's exactly what the great organization does. It gives back to Graham County. I was born and raised here. I feel an honor. I feel it to be an honor to live in Graham County, and I feel it as an honor to serve Graham County. So when I serve part-time with a great organization, I feel like it's an honor for me to give back to the county that has given so much to me and to my family. There's a rumor going around that I personally receive 10% of all the grants that come through. Wouldn't that be nice, Mr. Edwards? You know how that is? Well, I think if I looked at my W-2, I'd probably be close to part-time employment at $20,000 during 2013. So if you divide $20,000 into $1,017,067 that the great organization has brought into the county in 2013, for every dollar that is invested, you got $51 back. That's a pretty good deal, if you ask me. I'd take that investment any time. Okay. Gosh, I guess that's about it. Other than personally inviting you to the great annual meeting in January. It will be held on Thursday, January the 23rd. And it will be a collaborative meeting with Graham County TNT and Fontana TNT, and we will be inviting Dr. Steve Morris from Western Carolina University to come and give an update on tourism and the effects financially that tourism has, in particular for Graham County and for Western North Carolina. So please plan to attend, mark that on your calendar now. You will be getting a personal invitation in the mail. So, any questions? Any comments?
Do you have scheduled where the meeting's going to be?
More than likely, Connie, depending, but 99% sure it will be held where we've had it each of the annual meetings at the Robbinsville Elementary Auditorium. And we will start with a dinner at 5 o'clock move through a little bit of great business, and then turn it over to Dr. Morris from Western Carolina. Thank you, Mr. Edwards.
Okay, I have
Yes.
just a few comments on
Yes, sir.
this. I think everybody on this board fully realizes that, Rick, you're the face that I see so much with regard to great. But the number of people that are involved in this, they have a lot of times have organizations in their paper. But this one right here is a dynamo. And it's been the Sedgeway for more than you've got listed on this list. I mean, there's been so many things. I mean, I could throw in there, maybe not, looking to the things of trying to jump ahead and get a comprehensive plan done for Graham County. Not opening up the wound, but that was an initiative on the part of Greg. And I've learned a lot, particularly from you and our history and past, and then too, with this time with this board and in Graham County. Great has got done a lot, but two, it's getting to where it's being depended upon. I just want to kind of let you know that from my standpoint, I depend upon you. And that says a whole lot, I hope.
That does say a whole lot.
Because that's something that has to be earned over time. And if you've got something going on and you need somebody to back you up, Great's there. And they're not just going to give you a letter. They're going to give you the support. And I appreciate everything that's been done here. And I can speak, I'm going to be quiet, is that the grant for the after-school program is huge.
Yes.
I've seen the product of that and the need for that. And it is quite remarkable that amount of money during this particular time in history in the state of North Carolina that happened for Graham County. And I so appreciate everything you folks do. Board, any other comment from Mr. Davis?
I appreciate everything except the flower beds and mail.
Thank you there, Raymond, I appreciate that. So,
I've caught more flack over that and anything that we've done.
I didn't know you was involved in that, but thank you for,
Well,
thank you for that comment. It doesn't matter, you're right. And Mr. Edwards, I would be negligent in not mentioning the support of all the volunteers of a great organization, and especially the 17 members that we have serving on the board of directors. They give quite a bit of time to the organization, and especially the committee chairs. They're charged with certain things to do, and they get with it, and they accomplish their goals, and they fulfill their strategic plan component of the great strategic plan. So, we've got over 100 members involved actively in the organization, and 40 agencies from regional agencies, local agencies, and state agencies. And it's a good place for our political folks to come and listen to what's taking place in Graham County. And most of the time, we have good representation from our congressional delegation at the great meetings. But I appreciate it and hope you will be able to attend the annual meeting on January the 23rd.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Davis. Appreciate it. At this time, we'd like to recognize our finance officer, Rebecca Garland, please. Welcome, Becky.
Good evening, it's good to be here. Just want to direct you to our financial highlights to start. Several items I want to point out, and I'm pleased to point out. If you look on page 1, Michelle and I are still trying to get all of the November revenues posted. We've got several items that we're waiting on information for. So I'll probably be doing the bank rec, or finishing the bank rec. We're in the middle of it right now this week. But just from my calculations, our cash balance at the end of November was $5.1 million. This time last year, we did not hit $5.1 million until the end of December. So we're tracking well ahead of this time last year. We had $4.76 million in the bank at the end of November. We have come a long way from the $2.4 million we had in 10-11 and about the $1 million we had the year before. So I'm really pleased to report that. If you look on page 3, our total collections for real property taxes for the month of November was $649,235. Collections of past due taxes for the month of November were $10,600. This time last year for November, we had collected $618,000, and we've collected in total for real property taxes $660,000. DMV, this includes back DMV taxes plus the tail end of the old system for 2013, plus the VTS that we get in on a monthly basis through the Department of Revenue, $32,173. If you look on the side to the left, our VTS for the month of November that just came in was $16,070. So we're beginning to see that beginning to roll.
And that's
Which
part of,
one is that?
The VTS is the new DMV system where you prepay your tag. Yeah.
and that's probably because I had to pay twice.
Yes,
You know,
and I think there was somebody in our office had paid twice this year too.
I'm happy as a lark about it, though.
You know, this is just like any other new system that you enact and implement. It's not been without its glitches. There's been several problems where DMV and the Department of Revenue did not exempt our Native Americans, so we've had to do a few refunds there. They're working really hard to iron out these little issues and problems, but overall, it's not been near as bad as I thought it would be, the conversion would be. Our total taxes collected, if you turn to page 4, through the month of November for this fiscal year is $3,312,000 in real estate and $156,700 in DMV. We are ahead $238,400 for real and right at $41,000, and that's because of the VTS that we're seeing that jump. Our collection rate is settled in at 58.08%. We were a little bit ahead of that as from a standpoint of a percentage this time last year.
We appreciate you calling. Yeah, we'll go.
Part of the reason for that is we have a higher levy this year, but you know, I'm gonna be watching that because we've been ahead up into this month, so I'm gonna be watching that pretty closely. Our taxes still outstanding for 13-14. If you look at the bottom there in yellow is 2.3 million. And our past due taxes is settled down at 281.5. We started the year at about 400,000 to 500,000, so we've done pretty good in getting those back taxes collected. I know our tax office is actively working those foreclosures. I know they've put some ads in the paper, and I know we've done some pretty good collecting based on just that activity. So that was a good
Dave,
thing.
can I ask a question on
Yes,
that?
sir.
Did we meet the budget line on that we projected? Yeah.
Not quite yet, but we're getting close.
How close?
I think we budgeted 300,000 and we're at like right around 200,000. So we got another 100 to go.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah, I looked that up today. I'm glad you asked. As I said, if you look on page 5, we're still trying to make sure we got all the revenues posted, but I'm estimating about 1.2 million in revenue for November and a little bit more than that, 1.279 million. So we have just a little bit of a loss in our activity for the month. But we were tracking way ahead this time last year.
Really, that 2 million, it's not really due till the last,
January 6th.
the 6th, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll be getting some, we'll see a pretty good jump in revenue this
Yeah.
month and even into January. We're, if you look on page 6, our surplus so far is 1.684 million, and we were at 1.796 million. Part of the drop there is when we decided to complete the senior center with the additional expenditures, we've begun making those additional expenditures. So in January, I'll be bringing a budget amendment for those additional expenditures, and that's where our surplus is dipped from this time last year. So it's all explained there. Looking at page 7, for the month, just came in probably Friday, was 123.4. We are still below this time last year. Variance is a negative $5,400. It was at a negative $10,000 this time last month. So once again, we're seeing some dips. The other thing too I wanted to mention, our revenue has dropped some, and what we're feeling right now is the impact or the ripple of the shutdown, because everything got closed and shut down in Raleigh as far as our DSS revenue went, so it's trickled in slower. So that's one reason that we're seeing, we saw a little bit of a dip there.
Now, that sales tax, that's only Grand County. right?
That's just Graham County, yeah.
We don't get none like we used to from anybody else.
Now, that's why it's so important to buy local, and do everything as much as we can locally. Any questions on that part? Okay, just looking at your budget sheet, I've changed it around just a little bit, because one, if you'll notice, or if you remember when we do these each month, you'll see the ideal remaining percent, and at 11:30, according to my system, is 58%, and I tweaked that just a little bit to what I call an effective percentage of 63%, because sometimes, or most times, we'll have a lag on when expenditures come in. So, November expenditures may not show up till the middle of December. So what I try to do is make an adjustment for that. So our departments should be tracking somewhere between the 58 and the 63%. Most of our departments are hanging in at that level. We have a few, like finance, for one, who's a little bit below that, because the big bulk of my budget is the audit, and that gets paid anywhere between, we have big payments that go out anywhere between October and January or February, and so that skews my budget out. And then, for instance, recreation, I always mention that one because it always looks a little rough this time of year because of football. But most of our departments are looking okay. The health department's right on target at 63%. They're one of our biggest departments. DSS is tracking along pretty well at 69%. So even in spite of, having some additional expenditures in there that we had early in the fiscal year. Some of the departments are looking a little iffy. And so Greg and I have been kind of working with those, diving into the line items, and this week what I'm going to be doing is, even though our departments are able to go in and run their own budget reports, what I want to do this week is pull them down, each department, a line item report, highlight any areas that look a little rough, that they may be running a little too far ahead, and then putting those in their hands, and then those who are tracking a little too hot to suit me, sitting down with them, as soon as we get back from the holiday, just to go through it. And this is a good time to do this because we're right at mid-year, and if they need to make any corrections, they can. Most of them, when I dive into the line items, when I look at it, I can tell, like for instance, the election board, they had big expenses with the November election, and they've had to do quite a bit more travel than they had anticipated this year, with a lot more state required meetings they have to go to because everything's changed down in Raleigh. And so I've already met with their director and talked about, areas that we can remediate. So this is just a good time, kind of like your New Year's resolutions for us to look at everything. As a county budget, we're right at 64%, so we're overall, we're fine. But I don't like to say overall I'm fine when I know I've got departments that may need to do some rethinking of how they create expenditures. So, kind of is where we are as far as the budget goes. Any questions? I did have one question for the board. We had an issue that we discovered in the tax office with DMV. It appeared like that in February they created a batch to be sent to the printer, but it didn't get sent to the printer. And so in December 15th, people started wanting to know if their tags are there. Their tags were blocked. So we discovered that batch had never been created. But because of the law, or the understanding of the law, the system had created interest to be added. But we were able, and Mr. Cable over here was able to dive into the statute. We were able to figure out that because it was a county error, interest should not have accrued on those bills. Now, most of the bills they've created, they've gone in and done the research, and they've created lots and lots of refund requests. About half of them are in the neighborhood of $1 to $2. Some of them are $5, $10 if it was a large bill. And I've got this many who are under $1. And I've got one right here that's for 11 cents. And I know this board always wants to do the right thing, by the taxpayers. And I know this sounds like a stupid question, but I'm famous for it. Do we want to issue refunds for less than $1? And it's going to cost us 46 cents to mail them. And personnel time to create the checks.
I'd say put a credit on their next.
Is that permissible?
I think, I'll have to check with them, that was my idea, is credit some other part, that we couldn't put a credit on next year's DMV because they pay that at the tag office now. I don't know, I'll have to check with them, but I had thought about that, is if we create a credit on next year, because I don't like for them not to have their money back, but at the same time, I don't want somebody walking in and saying, you really wasted taxpayer dollars for a 46 cent stamp to send me a dime check.
If it's permissible, I'd be for doing it, balance it out the next cycle, if that's possible.
I'll check, they'll have to check with the vendor.
And if, that is a question that's up in the air that I asked, and it was, the first impression I got is that, you can't do a credit, or the other suggestion was to put the notice out there to these individuals, whether by phone call or whatever, and allow them to know that they have a credit, and if they wish to come in and take that, then we would be happy.
Yeah, we can create a check if they want to come pick them up.
I can't see a stamp for 11 cents.
Yes, sir. It's going to cost us.
But they're to get it back.
And it would be available there to get it back, absolutely, without a doubt. And it may be easier just, we can offer credit to contact these individuals and say, this has been credited back, you can come in and receive your refund.
Not mail the letter.
Right.
No,
Because
we're
we're defeating
not
the
mailing a
purpose.
letter. It'll be a phone call.
Well, that comes up pretty simple then.
All right, is that we can give a directive with regard to that, so the board approves that?
We can check it out and see if we're permitted to do that by statute. Okay, thanks.
Just a couple of things, just to FYI, we got a payroll conversion Thursday for bringing our payroll back in-house. So if Michelle and I are particularly grouchy that day or not available, you know what we'll be doing. Because we hope to have it back in-house with the first payroll in January. We just processed the last payroll for the calendar year today. Or we'll be hitting the button on Wednesday morning. Some people haven't turned their time sheets in. Another project that the finance office has been working on and will be implementing in January, I've already met with the department managers back in actually October or November, is the process of tightening up our controls over pre-audit. There's been two major North Carolina court cases. One was Executive Medical Transport Incorporated versus Jones County DSS and Howard versus County of Durham, which have pointed out under the North Carolina Court of Appeals that counties are still not doing everything they need to do. If you'll recall, under North Carolina General Statute 159-28, if we create an expenditure without a pre-audit, we have created a contract that is null and void. Therefore, what the School of Government has advised for all of us to do, because they recognize that we have people out and about every day of the week who have to be able to conduct county business, is to create blanket purchase orders where if we have particular vendors that we do quite a bit of repeat business with, each month we will create a blanket PO with a good solid estimate of how much will be expended under the budget for that particular vendor for that month. And on that blanket, we'll have the verbiage that is exactly out of 159-28, and I will sign off on it each month. So I've had the department managers kind of doing a warm-up exercise where each month they try to provide me with information while I was doing the audit report, just to kind of get them in the habit. And then my hope and my prayer is that come January 1, I will be issuing those pre-audit certificates, holding them in my office, so that if and when somebody has to go to swipe a fuel card or do whatever they need to do, they will be covered. Because technically, under the law, if you go and you make a purchase and you don't have that pre-audit certificate signed off on me in advance, you are creating a contract that is null and void as far as the county is concerned. And that particular person can be held liable personally. And the finance officer can be held liable. So if I write the check for it. So that's one area that we've come a long way from where we were in 2009. We're still not quite there. And we're not alone, because when Ms. Malonzi was telling us about it at the fall conference, it was a good thing that there were not rotten tomatoes for us to throw at her, because there's just so much level of work you have to try to get out and do. So that's one area that will be implemented. And if you get phone calls about it, this is why we're just trying to cover the county every which direction and make sure that our vendors are covered, because it's as much for their protection as it is for our protection. And if they sell us something that we're saying, yes, this is an expenditure we're going to honor under our budget.
But one of the concerns I'd have about that is, if you know, is that you don't lay a blank check.
Blank check. Yes.
I mean, you want them to have availability to be able to make those purchases as they can.
Right.
Um,
And what we try to continuously communicate is your budget is not a blank check, period. It is a guideline. It is what we have to stay within. But just because you've been budgeted $875,000 for fiscal 13-14 for your department does not mean you have to spend every dollar of that, and absolutely should not be overexpending. But that's one thing that the School of Government is very, very diligently trying to get across to all the counties and all municipalities, is that if you send someone forth and they have a fuel card, or they have, any kind of a method of needing to go and purchase anything, and they don't have something to back them up, you're putting everybody at risk. You're putting the vendor at risk, and you're putting the employee at risk. Because they would, if you had had somebody that really wanted to hold the line, you had a disgruntled taxpayer come in and say, I want to see every pre-audit you've done, and I want to see the invoice that goes, and has it been dated before the expenditure was made, then that is not my requirement to pay this as a taxpayer. And you are liable. So we've got to be really careful. So, what we're trying to do is, when we have the department meeting, was to say, look, this is what we're going to do. That doesn't mean that it's a blank check. Your budget's not a blank check.
And as I understand it, the last session of the General Assembly beat that up some, didn't it?
Yes.
I mean, there's been revisited
Yes.
to make sure that's done.
Yeah. And
I
the
have two-
interpretation's getting way, really, really tighter and tighter. They're even talking about oral contracts now, even though the statute says written contracts.
I have
And
two
so-
questions.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I just had one or two
Go
other
ahead.
things,
You go
but
ahead.
this takes, whatever you ask, because this is just something that's
Okay,
just.
audit, how does the RDA, the audit situation working out?
It is underway. They're making some pretty good progress with it. Thankfully, there was not a lot of activity. Local Government Commission is probably, I shouldn't say probably, they said that audits for all the back years should, since they did not have them done, are going to need to be done. They didn't put a timeline on it. They just said sometime within this year, just so they can mark it off their list. But I would expect, I think they're going to test some disbursements this week. I think they're probably ready to draft that one by the end of the week.
Okay.
So we're tracking along on
How
IDA.
many are members?
They should have had audits from 2006 forward. There was, in looking in their information, there was talk in 2006 of getting that done, and then I think things just sort of went by the wayside. So we're trying to get it back.
Did they absorb the cost for the audit?
They agreed to pay for the audit. Yes, they did. At their last, I think they met last Monday night. They're gonna get written up for three things. They're gonna get written up for not having a budget. They're gonna get written up for not appointing a finance officer, which I think they're trying to figure that part out. And they're gonna get written up for not having audits. So there's gonna be a pretty strong unit letter that'll come down. It won't come to us, it'll come to them, it'll be CC'd to the Board of Commissioners and CC'd to me. And I expect I'll be the one that writes the response.
So basically, the board's dropped the ball since 2006?
I think so. I think there was a general lack of understanding by that board that I think they felt like they were, because Graham County per se had not funded them, that it was money that was funded way back, that they were, I don't think they understood that they were a body politic.
All right.
And honestly, it probably would have rocked along longer, just except for all those GASB pronouncements that came down that forced and made me start to having to ask questions, which I should. I mean, I'll take blame where blame is due. I should have questioned it early on, but I was kind of busy cleaning up our problems, and I didn't even realize that they really had any activity until I started digging and questioning.
Okay.
So, anyway,
Great. Well,
I'm trying my best to help guide them through it and partner with them so that they can get where they need to be.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is there anything else? Any questions? Just a couple of FYIs. As far as the finance office is concerned, I will be traveling to Durham in early February to represent Graham County at the North Carolina City County Managers Association. I was given a scholarship toward my MPA, and the biggest reason I was given the scholarship was because they knew that I was working for Graham County and trying to, and I think they kind of felt like that our end of the state needed some recognition, so I was excited that I will be representing the
Who to
county.
send a card to?
Pardon?
No, I'm just kidding.
And then this is just a total FYI, it has nothing to do with finance. I'm gonna take my finance hat off, but one of your employees is gonna be the person of the week on WLOS News next December, it'll be the 27th, so make sure you tune in and you'll see who your employee is that's
December
27th. will be
okay.
person of the
At
week.
6 o'clock or?
6 o'clock.
Okay.
Okay, we'll leave it at that.
Good PR for Graham County.
Absolutely. Thank you. Any other questions for Becky? Thank you, Becky, very much. All right, at this time, we recognize Sheriff Mickey Anderson, Jerry Crisp, and Annette Carver.
They won't be here. All those people are coming in.
Did they come off agenda?
They didn't notify us prior to the meeting.
He just got back from the doctor and commented that he wasn't.
Okay. Duly called, so we'll leave it at that. All right, this time, we'd like to entertain any public comment, please. Thank you very much. Commissioner David Wood, do you want to have some more time? You're on this list.
I'm good.
You're good. Mr. Brent Martin.
Good. Mr.
Bill Hodge.
I'm good.
Thank you. Okay, Jill Goddison, would you like to have a few minutes? Since we couldn't get to time in at the earlier session, I'm under no pressure. I mean, there's no grade or anything involved. I mean, this is Miss Jill Goddison. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to just take one additional moment now that we've got the full slate of commissioners here to bring us back to the topic of the resolution that y'all will be voting on tonight. I do work with Mr. Brent Martin, Mr. Bill Hodge, and Silva for the Wilderness Society, and just wanted to make one quick statement about wilderness areas and what is allowed in wilderness areas, because we talk a lot about what might not be allowed. You can camp, you can hunt, you can fish, you can hike, you can ride horses, all those things in a wilderness area, and I just want to make a small note that goes a long way towards honoring and maintaining local mountain traditions and ways of life. It's one of the things that we recognize as a wilderness value. You can also manage fire in wilderness. You can conduct search and rescue operations. You can stock fish, and you can build fires in wilderness areas. Some of those folks don't realize that you can do. And just another quick word, we talked a lot about the partnership that is happening now around our current forest management plan revision process. And as someone who spent a lot of time building relationships and building trust with folks that are coming to meet with us who represent timber and other forest products interests, recreation interests, cultural heritage and economic development interests, and other conservation-related interests. It's been pretty amazing, the kinds of conversations that we've had around the table. And I just want to give one more word of encouragement to your board and to your county government and manager to please join us and follow our conversations and really help us come up with some creative solutions and some really good management recommendations that we can all, as a unified and broad coalition, present to the Forest Service for what we would like to see happen in this management plan revision. I think it's a new era where everyone is trying to collaborate, everyone's trying to do more with less. We are putting a lot of effort in on this front end of the management planning process to avoid some of the litigation and appeal that Callie Moore told y'all about. It's very expensive and it really holds processes up for years on the back end if we don't do some of this good work on the front end. So for a lot of us, this represents a real sea change in the way of doing business and the way of thinking about how our public lands are managed. And coming at the approach that we have enough land to look for common ground and common values as well as particular interests that the forest users are looking at. I really do believe that this citizens alternative group that's come together is a real good way to approach this issue. So just wanted to put that back again in the forefront of your attention as you think about the resolution. And hopefully you'll come join us and we can really work together for Grand County and all of the interests in the far western counties. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Something too that you might add to the ones that you said that you could do in there, if they put a buffer zone around it, then it's all a different ballgame. And they can do that mile, 10 miles, a mile of about reach the town. We're surrounded by Forest Service and the park. If they put a buffer zone around the park, it would nearly reach the courthouse because it's our miles, the buffer zone. If they put a buffer zone around what we're talking about out there, then it'd probably be a mile or 2 miles. And it'd take in a lot more stuff, and a lot more stuff you couldn't do. So it's not the picture that that you painted there to start with. Because when they put the buffer zone on it, it's all over with.
I'm so sorry, I'm not familiar with the kind of buffer zone that you're referring to.
A buffer zone that they put on, that they can put on the park. If they do, it will wipe Bryson City out, wipe most of Graham County if they put it on the park. And the wilderness areas is more apt to have a buffer zone than any of the rest of it.
Well, Jill, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay, I just wanted to ask a clarifying question, but perhaps we could talk more about it after the meeting, because I'd love to be able to clarify and answer any other questions you might have.
But we have fought a buffer zone on the park for years, and they've never come to that point. And hopefully it won't on any of it. But if you put a buffer zone around that wilderness, and the wilderness we've already got, and then the Tennessee buffer wilderness that's on the Monroe County side, then they make any kind of rules they want to satisfy them. And
When you say them, you mean the United States Forest Service?
right,
Yes, Jill, would you list those things you can do again, please?
Well, the ones that I read are camping, hunting, fishing, horseback riding, managing fire with a fire management plan for each specific wilderness area, search and rescue operations, building fires, and stocking fish.
Okay. All right, good. And with that,
but no timber harvest,
Correct, no commercial timber.
no fire saws.
You can use power saws if it's in fighting fire or for search and rescue with the regional forester's approval. They use power saws and leaf blowers and boards in a table rock fire in the wilderness because they needed it to fight the fire.
In conversation with U.S. Forest Service, I mean, this was just whenever I asked them about fire management in the wilderness, I was informed that they typically do not intercede in a forest fire in wilderness unless there's life or property at risk.
That is correct.
This is George Cumber Slick, it is George Cumber Slick Rock.
But I'm just saying that they let it burn unless there's,
They have
the only
a-
reason they will go in is if there's life or property at risk.
I'd like to see more fire in Cherokee County, our forest is too thick.
But I'm just saying, from a fire management standpoint, they won't put it out unless there's the danger.
It depends on if they have a fire management plan in place for the wilderness. They are charged with trying to write a fire management plan that would say, in these parameters, we will not fight a fire as long as human life or property is not at threat. If there is no fire management plan in place, they will fight the fire regardless.
What if the watershed jeopardized?
What's that?
What if there's a watershed that's jeopardized?
Fire, they can make a decision, but they did hear on George Cumber in 2002, probably,
Absolutely.
they fought that with helicopters in the George Cumber Slick Rock.
okay. All right, I see
Yeah,
that.
the main point is to have a plan in place that's been looked at and worked out ahead of time.
I can, if
Okay,
you want me to, real quickly. One, she's right about all those things except in North Carolina, you can't ride horses in wilderness areas in North Carolina. In our part of George Cumber Slick Rock, but when you cross the Tennessee line, you can in Slick Rock. So that's just the state. That's the land management plan you need to comment on. Also, some of the buffer areas, there's a little bit of that, but the existing land management plan is basically a zoning plan. There are as many acres that were withdrawn from management, that little areas all around the county, that there are as many acres than there are in Joyce Kilmer and Snowbird combined. Snowbird, Joyce Kilmer, and Slick Rock. There's management area 2C, 4C, 5. There's a whole lot of little different reasons. Some are buffers for one reason or another visual or whatever, trails, Appalachian Trail, roads, recreation areas. So there's probably 28,000 acres of this county that were removed in the existing plan. So the county needs to, get input that, because you don't want any more, I don't think. And there was, to a lot of us, there was too much the first time. So that's another reason, and I guess it's back to my little statement earlier about acres left in management. So there are in this county as many acres withdrawn as there are in Joyce Kilmer, Slick Rock, Snowbird, for a whole host of other reasons. Some people refer to them as buffers, and some are, but maybe that's where Raymond, because there are other ways and other reasons to withdraw land. I think the problem's there.
Well, I mean, really, Joe, I appreciate it because, your background. I know that you've done the dance, so to speak, and I've had the experience. With what Raymond's saying, I fully appreciate, the fact of the limitations and restrictions, but it comes right back to the same thing I'm hearing again tonight, is that we need to have a way. We need to have a vehicle that somehow or the other express these things. And outside of us, here being able to come up with decrees or edicts or something like that, that are probably not going to be paid attention to. And you folks could have not come tonight. I mean, I realize that, but there was more to it than, well, we're going to go and, we're going to push for this, that, and the other. What you've done, you've come here tonight, and it's helped me to understand more clearly about having an opportunity to make some of the changes that we want to make, or need to make, or would like to see done. So when it comes to that time, and I know we've kind of jumped around, and you caught it, but you're here, and I thank you. And I think that having an understanding, too, about what was mentioned early on, and I'm just going to reiterate this, is that in 1984, the deed was done, more or less, in a lot of respects, and then saying that in 1994, did you say it was revisited? There was
The amendments to the plan.
the amendments to the plans in 1994. So now we find ourselves at an opportunity, a time of opportunity to have input. And this board, and myself included, looked at it from the standpoint, well, we're just going to holler out and say, no, we don't want to have that. And still, as I sit here, I'm cautious. And I know the heart of a lot of the folks here on this board, all of us, we're from here, we have a lot invested here. But if there's an opportunity for us to participate, and if it's county manager, or I've known David Wood, I trust his assessment and a lot of different things, and also with Callie, previously meeting with her, and look into this. So we've got a hard thing to decide tonight, but perhaps we can have some frank conversation amongst ourselves tonight, or maybe another day. But again, I appreciate every one of you. I know there's a public comment period, and I just want to make sure that you had opportunity. You were on the list, so we've got to get a chance to do
I
that.
do appreciate it, and we all know that this region has changed considerably since 1994, since that last plan was amended. So this management plan revision opportunity is just an incredible opportunity for all of us, I believe, to really come together and to work for this next, not just 15 to 20 year management plan period, but really looking at whether it's our local Forest Service, our Forest Service as an agency, how we, the public, engage in our public lands and our public lands management decision processes. So we just don't want to let this opportunity go by. So, thank
And
you.
a resolution from this board could state that we do not agree with wilderness area. And at the same token, say that we'd like to venture in different areas, different ways, alternates. It's up to this board, not me. But one thing that just came to mind, I'm going to go ahead and say it. If in fact the King Meadow is still for sale, 755 acres, 755 acres of land. I'd like to ask Rick and Gray if they could come up with $3.5 million to buy it.
Only if I get Jim to see him.
That doesn't even go in the minutes either. But what I'd like to see, listen to me, I believe we need us a ski slope. Any of y'all ever been in that territory in snow?
Yeah. It's been left in the people that's got a whole lot more than you have now. So,
But they're not from here.
they are.
No, shut it up. But that just crossed my mind. Maybe that was just
But you were talking about the FARs, yours, several, what we know, was it 90?
was the fire at Joyce Kilmer in 2000, I believe it was, and they aggressively fought that fire. That was the year I moved away. I was in Arkansas, and they asked me to come back. I couldn't, but anyway, I know they aggressively fought that fire, and they got permission to use chainsaws and all.
They cut a 40 by 40 landing zone right on top of the hangover for fighting that fire.
But that's an evolving process and plan, the way the Forest Service attack fires. So they have a priority now, and you'll need to talk to the people that are currently working, because based on their capabilities to fight fire, there are more and more areas that have less of a priority. And structures, people, that's the highest. So the lowest priority would be wilderness. But that's another evolving issue that's kind of a little bit aside of this land, somewhat aside from the land management.
Well, I spotted the first one of them. And when I went to check more after we got everybody rolling, Joyce Kimball wouldn't have burned if they hadn't started fighting it when I found it. They got it out before it got into the runaround and everything.
They had too many bosses there.
Well, I'm sure they did, but we eat some good steaks and other stuff while it was going on. But I spotted 7 fires out there, 7 fires that night.
But firefighting and fire management plans are an evolving process, and they're adjusted every year. So you kind of need to stay in touch with the local people about what and how to prioritize that. And that's based on money and resources.
But they let that burn, down at Collywood Dam, on First
They let a lot of it
Creek.
burn, I heard.
It burned for weeks.
I remember when Yellowstone burned, when Yellowstone burned, the reason it burned so bad, it destroyed it just really destroyed a lot of timber. It was one of the most violent fires in American history. And the reason it burned is because we suppressed fire. Every time the woods caught on fire, we went over and put it out. And just the debris in the forest just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And the forest needs fire.
Welcome to California.
Huh?
Welcome to California.
Yeah, it's natural for it to burn. And back in the old days, they burned the woods every year. We didn't have any problems with it. It's a good thing.
All right, as chair, I got to try and keep things rolling right along. Any other comment, anything? Anybody else? Thank you, Jill. Appreciate it. At this time, I'd like to recognize our manager. We have several action items we need to address. 5 of those are polls, by the way. I think you understand how this board feels like polls, but a lot of these things came of necessity, having to do with building projects and such. Mr. Manager.
Yes, sir. First on discussion items is the senior center and the scattered site monthly performance status report for CDBG grants 10-C-2231 and 12-C-2417. The first one is on the 2231. It is the status report on the Graham County Senior Center. Last understanding we had is that the completion date for the senior center will be the 20th. There was only one minor modification I had to make, and it was in the kitchen. Just had to make some room for a freezer. Looks really, really nice. Got a call today, Dish Network is up there trying to hang an antenna to get it up and running. So we should see the Graham County Senior Center opening up, hopefully before the end of the year, to be completed. Next is the 2417 CDBG grant, which is the rehabilitation, the scattered site. That grant is currently, we opened up the bids for the demolition, and all that documentation has been sent down to Raleigh for verification. I think Joan said last week, did Joan get the title work done on the homes? So she's got the title work, that's being sent to Raleigh, everything's being processed so that she can let the bids for the lead testing and demolition. So hopefully shortly after the first year, we should see motivation on that and see that start moving. And I will need action to accept these performance status reports, right, Ken?
Okay, we have a motion, entertain a motion to accept these. We have a motion. We have a second. Any conversation, questions, comment? All approved? All opposed? Thank you. All right, this time, Commissioners, before you have the releases and discoveries in your packets for consideration, I'd like to entertain a motion that we accept these and discoveries in the amount of $4,998.74 and total releases in the amount of $515.12. A motion, we have a second. Any question or comment about these? Okay, all approved? All opposed? Thank you. Mr. Manager?
Yes, sir. Next on the agenda is the reappointment of the road naming board members. Requested names are Ms. Connie Orr and Brian Johnson for 1-year terms.
I'll move.
Have a motion?
Second.
Second. Any question or comment, Ms. Orr?
I'll give them.
Okay. All right, all approved? All opposed? Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the reappointment of Travel and Tourism Board member. Tabitha Myler sent up a request asking that Barry Levy be reappointed for a 1-year term.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Have a motion? Second. Any question or comment? All approved? Opposed?
Next, you have before you the resolution as discussed in the workshop today and in public comment in opposition to additional wilderness in Graham County.
So move.
Second. I'd like to have comment. You know, with this, it comes down to the issue of, the issue of having any more land in Graham County is designated in that of a wilderness area and what comes with that. But I want to ask everybody, and I've had a turn from the time I first had anything in this. Where do we go as a board to say no? Where do we go to be able to make any difference with what we were wanting to accomplish? I looked at this, if we go with this tonight in the present form of this particular resolution, then we're pretty much closing the door for Graham County to be at the table to have some comment with that. And I would have to stand and oppose to the resolution as it's written at this time. So any other comment from the board? We do have a motion on the floor. We do have a second. Okay, all approved? All opposed? Opposed. All right, thank you very much. All right, this time, Mr. Manager.
Next, need permission from the Graham County Board of Commissioners to reapply for the Park and Recreation Trust Fund grant for 2014.
Okay, did we had Andy go to a meeting downstate with regard to that, they were letting money. What was the story with that?
We did not get final grant funding in 2013 for the application that we submitted. There were other projects. There was really no rhyme or reason as to why we did not get a selection. I mean, there were projects selected throughout the state. The project that we have was a well-written grant. There are areas of public involvement where we need to have, as they have stated, more of an outreach. That was done through different surveys within the schools and public hearings, but I think that the granting agency was wanting to see even more. Not that was the reason given why we did not get the grant. It was, that was ways, one of the only ways that we were told that we could actually improve a quality grant application. The application has to be in by January 31st. We have a very qualified project, and most of the information is just transposed into the new application. with the addition of some of the additional public outreach that is currently being worked on now. I highly recommend being able to reapply for this grant.
So moved.
Yeah, with that, I have a motion. Do we have a second? We go ahead and reapply. All right, with the comment on that is the status of the Stanley property.
Yes, sir. We have requested the forms to allow for a waiver, meaning we can take possession of that property and still be able to use the property value as our match.
In other words, Stanley is not getting cold feet.
No, sir.
I mean, I don't know any other way to say it.
In our conversation with Mike Olson and Stanley, he just said, look, we're just waiting on you to come down here. You know, whenever you're ready for it, it's yours.
Okay,
There's
we're
no-
verging on the edge of contract or agreement, so I just want to know the status of that. So we have a motion on the floor to go ahead and pursue the part of grant. We have a second. Any further comment or question? All approved? All opposed? Thank you.
Next, needs to get some input from the board in regards to NCACC legislative goals for the upcoming 2014 short session. I had a conversation last week with Amy Basin, who is the general counsel to the NCACC. Asked her to give me a general idea if there was any particular items that the NCACC as a whole was going to try to push to the short session. She indicated that there really was not, that most of the time in a short session, they spend a lot of their time trying to keep anything happening in campus. That seems to be more of the trend. Of course, they're always willing to carry a legislative goal to the General Assembly, but most of the time, those short sessions are focused on budgetary items and changes to existing laws. So they're sort of having the, on a defensive position more than an offensive position with that type of session.
Okay, Mr. Manager, one thing that I've mentioned, being actually with the NCACC, is that we stay on the issue of the PILT.
Yes, sir.
I know that Rebecca Troutman is very familiar with how Graham County stands with regard to that, and everybody that's in finance knows how much dependent we are on the $283,000, $2.05 an acre. So if we could just do that, I know you'd be in touch with them with regard to PILT. Anybody else have any other comment for any type of legislative goal? I'd like to remind the board, and Greg's already talked about the short session, but the issue that was brought forth from Graham County last year, and Greg worked very hard on this, was the inmate medical. That originated at this particular juncture at the NCACC to go and to introduce proposed legislation or action on the part of NCACC to lobby for this. So this is something vital right here, and I would stress, and I guess the next go around will be the next session.
Yes, sir.
After November.
I'll be, of course, this board appointed me to the Justice and Public Safety Steering Committee for the NCACC. I have a meeting coming up in January where they're going to be discussing some of those issues. And of course, as with any legislative session, there may be times needed to go down there and express a position or things like that, for the county. But it doesn't look like there's going to be a substantial amount of travel required to this session.
Okay, that's good.
That's
All right. Thank you very much.
Next, we have a request from the Graham County Health Department requesting adding a fee for a TV screening fee of $5 at our health department, and I need action on that, please.
Was this part of the schedule that we had previously? She brought a schedule of costs. Is this an amendment to that?
It is an amendment to that, yes.
Do y'all remember that?
Yeah, it was just one, I think that was only one.
Okay. All right, do we have a motion?
Should be,
Okay, do we have a motion that we approve the TV screening cost of $5?
so moved.
Have a motion? Second, any further comment or question? All approved? Okay, Okay, all opposed? Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, would you rather read off each one of these polls individually, or do you want to approve them as a whole?
I think, Ms. Clerk, we had to do that to each one, right?
Either way you want to do it.
All right, with these, would you read those, please, and we'll do those in one lump sum. We've already had a poll vote on these, and in your package, you have those dates, have the amounts, the particular topic, and in that, if you would please read those, and we'll have that in a joint.
Absolutely. The first poll was a personnel poll taken on November 19, 2013. The second one is a senior center poll for the kitchen and extra work, $12,000 and credit back to the county of $12,000. That poll was taken December 3rd, 2013. Number 3 is a DSS office equipment purchase of chairs and tables, approximately $2,153. That poll was taken on December 3rd, 2013. We had a situation come up with the jail on supplies purchase in the form of a new restraint chair, new cots and miscellaneous supply of $2,439.30. The poll was taken on December 4th, 2013. And whenever we brought out our nativity scene for the county, it was destroyed, and we had to order a new nativity scene in front of the courthouse. And that purchase of that new nativity scene was $1,499.99. That poll was taken on December the 6th, 2013, and it has been set up. It is in place. It was delayed. It was supposed to have been here Thursday or Friday, and the shipping company did not get it here on time, so they actually had to credit us $181 for shipping for not getting it here on time. But it is very nice. Kim ordered it, and we need to make sure that it was properly installed.
Not one meeting.
And so it's
Move on 6.
Okay, and board members be reminded too that the particulars in that have been placed for our clerk in our packets. And I know this board doesn't like to do polls a lot, but we have a lot of construction needs going on. All right, we have a motion to accept the poll votes as stated.
Second.
Have a second. Any question or comment on any of these? All approved? Okay, all opposed? Thank you very much.
You didn't put a Santa Claus up there, did you, on there?
All right, Mr. Manager?
Another one is we needed an action on an amendment to the county personnel policy on insurance benefits to begin after 60 days of a new hire after January 1st, 2014. And after you take action on that, or I can discuss it now, had a department head meeting last week, and there was one item that the department heads agreed as a whole to ask me to bring to the Board of Commissioners as far as an amendment in regards to employees allowed to receive holiday pay and accrued annual leave, in less than 6 months of hire.
That'd be an amendment to our personnel policy, would it not?
Yeah, that would be. This is a mandatory thing on the insurance.
Yeah.
company.
This amendment here is mandatory, but
But
the other one is a request.
That's only new hire.
New hires.
The other one will not go into effect as far as my look back until the July renewal. Then I have to do the Affordable Care Act. That's my look back on my temporary, on my part-time.
And that is a look back.
Yeah, my look back on my part-time.
Yeah.
But on January 1 is
Yeah.
not anything on my new hires.
Okay. All right, so this is required. And then the other issue that you brought up
All right.
has to do with, you have to explain that to me. I'm not understanding that. And that's not a part of this motion.
No, sir, it's the second part of what I stated completely has nothing to do with this First Amendment. The First Amendment that Kim has brought to you is, as passed down from our insurance carrier, being compliant with
Okay.
the Affordable Health Care Act.
All right, with that then, let's move right along with it. This right here is pretty much mandatory. We don't have much to say, but we will have it in the form of a motion, please.
Motion.
Have a motion, we have a second. Any question or comment? All approved?
That is, thank you very much. Now, the other issue.
The second item is, in the department head meeting, the request was made for communication for the Board of Commissioners. Some of the department heads are, they feel that waiting 6 months for an employee to be able to acquire annual leave and holiday pay and things like that is too long. I expressed that, if this is the direction the department heads would like for me to ask the Board of Commissioners, then I certainly would. We have and I explained that we have circumstances within the county where, the turnover rate is extremely high, and this is actually, would be a detriment to the county because it's not a fair situation, but of course there are other circumstances where they're trying to hire highly qualified individuals, and being able to offer this as an incentive is beneficial. I simply told the department heads that I would bring it before the Board of Commissioners for conversation and to get your thoughts on it.
Mr. Human Resources?
Do not entertain that.
Do what?
Do not entertain that at this time.
Is there some education on that side of things?
I will educate you. You changed that in the personnel policy when we did
I
that
know.
for a reason. We have a high turnover in several departments. Our indirect costs are greatly affected by that. We do not need to entertain that at this time.
Make a motion that we do not entertain.
Okay. Well, what I mentioned and what we talked about in the meeting was that we needed to study it because it has an impact, it's gonna really impact your budget on one hand, but then it can bite us on the other end with indirect. So, I would not want you to make a decision tonight. I think we need to study the overall financial impact of making a change. I agree with Kim on the level, because we do have one or two departments that the turnover is so tremendous that it costs us a whole lot of money. If we have to, if we put them on one benefit, we gotta put them on like the 401k or the retirement, and so it really needs study. That's all I wanna
From the
say.
management standpoint, I cannot agree more with these two. We need to have further discussion.
With that now, we have a motion and a second to the effect of not doing it now. Is that what?
Done it, period.
Not doing it, period? Okay, we have a motion and a second to that. All right, any other conversation? All opposed, signify by lifted hand. All opposed, like sign. I would like to ask that we do have that further conversation with this, and it would have to be considered in the next budget cycle.
Absolutely.
And I think you need to let the department heads know that, it's duly noted in that. But we would be foolish, really, to make a decision to the affirmative on that until we did more.
It is spelled out correctly in their
I
personnel.
don't get me wrong,
No.
bringing this to your attention,
No,
I
that's
was not
fine.
asking for
No.
a vote on this
I
tonight.
understand.
It's to,
But that's where this board stands right now with it.
absolutely.
Okay, correct. Just tell them it's duly noted, and we'll have to study it out.
Certainly. All right, I have some new business items. First one is Larry Henry and Brian Johnson will be able to travel to Raleigh in January as part of the MPG grant. They are reimbursed for $2,500 and they need permission to travel.
Have a second, all approved? All opposed, like sign. Where do you have to go, Larry? Oh, Raleigh. Okay.
Next, the safety committee got together, and I was informed of this today, and they got some pricing from individuals on trying to fix a concrete pad at the EMS base between the bays. Whenever there's heavy rains, they have flooding issue there. And the lowest bid came in, lowest price that was received. It wasn't, there
No
wasn't
bid.
a bid, because we didn't have approval to go out and get bids. was around $3,000. And looking at the budget, not really sure where it's gonna come from, because public buildings, we've done a lot of repairs this year on county buildings, and there's about $5,000 or so left in that line item in the budget, to get us through the rest of the year in case of emergencies. Obviously, there's money there.
Does it come into the building, Larry?
Yes, it's the building when there was heavy rain, we've had this issue since we've been up there.
In the
Tried
bays?
different things, and they took the mulch out, put pine straw in. It comes in for the wall, going into the, breezeway where the water is, it runs into that wall, it's out in the bay and in that area right there.
Tried to work on for several years ago, but we got a patch job out of it. So that's what happened with the patch job.
I'm making a motion, we put this out of bid before we get running anything.
Is bid the right term?
We can put it out for proposal. It's gonna be a little bit easier to manage.
I think it is. And what's the solution? I mean, how do you see the solution?
Once it come by, we look at it, we looked at putting about 8 inches of concrete and grading it out towards the road and carrying the water out, with a little mill through there.
The problem is the water won't get out where it is. So we put a patchwork on it 3 or 4 years ago. That's what the funds that we work with, and it helped this point, but it's just gonna keep leaking. But I don't understand the bid, but what we're talking about on bid.
We didn't run it in the paper for request for proposals.
But he did get proposed.
We didn't run it. You have to run it in the paper.
We have to run those in the paper if we're gonna put out information for people to build.
It's just getting his quotes, so you have an idea of what
Yes,
the cost
yes.
is.
Now we'll have to rerun
I'm
it.
sure I knew you guys were gonna ask for that, so.
Yeah,
That's all we're doing.
that's fine.
Where is the water coming from? I know it's uphill, but no, come on. It's too late.
No, what I'm saying is, where it's coming from is park building block.
Like the
park.
bay is here, and then the building where they dispatch is here, there's a place between it, they left open, and the water pours. They left mulch in between it.
Now, those pine straw in.
Is that why the machine room? No, that was another story.
What it does, it goes at 600 metal.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Park building is not a metal, it's a park block. So as it goes up higher, it goes under, we went in there and dug it out 2 years ago, and patched it, which we still didn't get the water out, but it stopped, this won't put it back again, I mean.
Well, don't say the architect's name, it
Build a roof over it.
should have been tore down, and the bays and all that should have been rebuilt back up.
I was there.
Lord forgive me.
Okay,
My personal self, I don't think we need to put anything as a proposal in the paper. If we're gonna do something, we need to put a bid in it. Because now then everybody knows what the figure was.
okay, what's the process for the bid?
Here's another thing, what kind of
Give it to
stuff
them.
does it apply to? What is,
They come in sealed.
is it gonna be poured concrete, put in pipe, put in a bead edge?
Well, you see, but you're saying there's bids already done and advertised?
They weren't advertised, they were called. Those were they were 3 people called. There were 3 concrete companies called. People who done concrete were called and asked to give a quote of what they would cost. And they brought in their quote. And Manager Cable opened up the quote today in the office.
Okay, so what do we need to do in this then? These
So
are,
if you want to award the lowest quote
Yeah.
today, it's legal.
right, as long as the advertising's been done correctly. I mean, with the bid process, there's how long?
You don't have to bid in the paper for under.
Okay, under this amount.
$100,000.
$100,000.
But
All
we
right.
can do what we want, I mean,
300,000, that's even better. Well, okay then, is that comfortable with the board? We'll go ahead and open these up as proposed.
It's not with me, because we agreed that we did everything that we done.
I think you said the same thing. Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and bid it.
How we gonna bid it, so we've done, says,
Well, that's true.
we've done told what the lowest bid was. So.
No, I said that bids were coming in around $3,000.
Yeah, these have not been entertained with this board. So we'll do that, bid?
Well, I mean, we agreed to give everybody a chance, and they may be.
That's what we did.
Didn't count.
Okay.
That's concrete work. I mean, that's my feeling on it. It was.
Is that okay, Ms. Clerk? Everybody else, we'll go ahead and do that and start the clean slate. Get it fixed.
Well, there again, if we put out bids on it,
Better have
we gotta have some kind of
a
going.
description, what we want done.
That's right, we can't.
You know what we want done?
Got it.
that's why they were called, to say, well, how do you fix this? Because we don't know.
No. Okay, we need to do that. We can get that together, send out for bid.
The reason this came out of safety committee, by the way, is because it's in Holloway where they run to get now.
Somebody's gonna get hurt.
Right.
That's the only reason my safety committee, water pouring down where they run to get land. So.
It needs fixed. Becky, we're gonna be able to pay for it?
And I think that, you know, in the future, it's gonna be important, so that a lot of this confusion that we're seeing here tonight doesn't happen. If there's recommendation that comes out of the safety committee, we probably need to bring those forward and prioritize those lists and see what we can in fact do in a budget year. I didn't see it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, is that okay if I go that route then? We'll be able to get the decision on it.
And I said, I don't know what it needs to be done. You're gonna have to tell me what has to be done.
Well, good, we can do
So
that.
give me somebody to tell me what has to be done.
You guys can do that, right?
Sure.
Sure, okay, thank you, David. Larry? All right.
And I'll take it before the board and see what they want me to do.
Absolutely. Just keep it where it needs to be.
Next is, in the previous budget year, part of one thing that we had to do long-term plan was getting on a fleet policy with our ambulances. We're coming up on the 2014, and we are in discussions with various vehicle companies, Peach State, Southeastern, in regards to replacing, is it 513, which is our backup Ford that actually is not much of a backup. And we have an opportunity to remount 513 onto a new chassis. It's my understanding after talking to Larry that that box is remountable. I would like to ask the board for us to be able to send out requests for proposals to these different ambulance companies to build these so that we can look into getting 513 redone and have a new truck on the way. At this point right now, I don't have an exact cost. We're probably, best idea looking at something similar to what we paid for the Chevrolet last
Hey,
year.
Bill, excuse me, wait just a minute before you leave. Excuse me, sorry.
Yes, sir. And, but I would like to get permission from the Board of Commissioners to go out and put that request for proposals out to the different ambulance companies.
Let's see, we had discussion about this, didn't we, Brandon, before, about making sure we didn't get caught short with this?
Myself, I don't think what we get for the Chevrolet, it's done good, right? And it's, what, do we save $60,000 on it?
Off of a new one, it was, you're saving about $60,000. I called one of the manufacturers back in September and told him, that, to keep his eye open, that, probably around the first of the year, we were gonna be, having this conversation. And apparently, finding a box to mount onto a truck has been very, very difficult. There haven't been a lot of them on the market that were remountable. And that's whenever the suggestion was made to remount 513 onto a new chassis.
But you're talking about what, the lifestyle? They give us a price.
Just remounting that box and everything, we're looking close to around 95, and still 3 to 4 months to do that.
My personal self, I don't like the mount to remount when you can get a Chevrolet like that she's got the lifestyle and save that much money.
Yes, sir.
It's just about 90-something.
That was our preference, to be able just to buy a demo unit like what
That's
we
my
saw.
preference.
Because you're talking about something that's already in the works a little bit, you can get it here a lot quicker.
And I also went by and talked to Sheriff Nick Anderson today too on that animals that's sitting down there, that they hadn't used any, and he said he didn't have no problem if we can find a company to give us any trade-in of giving it back to us to trade back in.
Has that been
I told
surplus?
him to take the lights off of it and any radios out.
It was shipped to the sheriff.
It wasn't surplus.
No, we still.
We donated within the county, so we didn't have surplus.
Okay. I think it's a
He
good idea.
asked me, told me to get out of the way. We need, because it ain't, the only time it's moved, I might move it from the front to the back, because everybody thought that was the ambulance base.
That one is, it's my understanding,
Okay.
we're talking to Barry Adams, that one has been remounted twice. It's not a candidate to be remounted onto a new chassis in one sheriff's office. Barry did indicate that the truck itself was pretty good and could be used in other areas of the county. Yeah, the chassis itself.
Well, I'd say trade in on this.
So we could get a trade, I think that's what Larry was saying, was
Huh?
maybe take it for a trade.
Yeah, if they'll take it.
I think we got 10,000 off that other one, wasn't it? 10,000? Yeah, 2, okay.
Did we trade the Freightliner on that round?
Yes.
Huh?
Yeah, we traded for it.
So the board is good with going out and getting RFPs on, would rather get a demo unit, I completely agree. There's nothing available to an RFP on the remount, or do you want to stay away from the remount, sir?
I'm staying away from the remount.
I think if we can do the Chevy deal again, we'd be good shape.
That was a great deal last year.
All right, we want to have that then as a directive, we just go ahead and explore that for a new one.
Okay.
How's that heavy fleet then? Your fleet's hanging in there?
So, our oldest families are running on the first line right now. It's got 89,000 miles, so we're getting close to 100,000, and it's 2012.
Now, we talked about this, about not getting it to the point that we don't get any trade-in, any value on that.
So next year it'll be ready to trade in.
Yep.
But what we do is go and get rid of the 513, and we get back to RS-70 and use it just whenever one of them's tore up or getting oil change or we need another ambulance. So it'll be setting, but it'll be running on occasions to keep the mileage down until.
And that's one of the Dodges,
Yeah.
one of the Dodges.
Yes,
And it's paid for.
yes.
That was one involved with
911.
Yeah.
Yeah.
513, you can't, it ain't feasible to take it to clinic back then. Then quit on it.
Okay, so we'll have a directive to do that then, we'll be looking for a new one, board?
Well, if he can find a demo like he did the last time.
Right, that sounds good.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Couple other quick items. In the last meeting, I presented the Board of Commissioners with the Graham County, the Federal Shutdown Management Plan. And just for you to have a review and have some questions on. And since that time, through department head meetings, I presented each one of the departments to let them have a look. I did not have any suggestions for any improvements to the plan. Everyone seemed to be fine.
I want to state that every indication that we have, we're not going to see a federal shutdown in January. From the sounds of it, they have come to a deal in Washington to avoid that. The House passed a measure on December the 12th, and it's supposed to go to the Senate this week, which they're expecting to pass it, and then on to the President. But given the circumstances that we found ourselves in a couple months ago, we saw the need to develop a plan for future shutdowns, starting at 30 days out. And I have this plan here. I would like to have the board to take action on this plan tonight, so that we have a roadmap in the future for mitigation of a shutdown.
All right. So with that, I'd entertain them.
Get everything straightened out.
Okay. I kind of missed that. Are you looking for, that we have that in place? You need a motion on that to accept that?
I would like
or it's
to-
already been done?
No, sir, it has not been done. I would like to have the Board of Commissioners approve this plan that I presented to you last time. And I presented to the department heads.
Yeah.
So that we have the roadmap and everyone is under the understanding of the proper steps that's going to be taken in a shutdown.
Right.
There's no major events going to happen until we're at the 15-day mark, prior to a shutdown. These are just going to be recognized as the Board of Commissioners as the plan going forward, which is, of course, is amendable by the Board of Commissioners, given the information that we have.
Okay.
At the time, as we all know, all that information trickles into the state and federal government, and it can vary from different event to event.
Well, I think it's prudent to have it in place because I've not got much hope in it myself personally. But we need to have that in place. So if we go ahead and approve that, can we have that as a part of a, never mind, I won't go there. Have a motion?
So moved.
Have a motion, we have a second? All right, any question or comment? Appreciate you doing that. We'll see, I hope we don't have to use it.
Yes,
All right,
sir.
all approved? All opposed? Thank you very much.
One last thing, just to follow up on what Becky said earlier, we were able to figure out the situation at the tax office. Those folks that had bills and got late notices were actually given an additional couple of months to pay that, and everything's fine, and it got worked out. So we got down and we dug through the law and were able to pull it out. So
Good.
so, thank you.
Now we can figure out how to get 2 cents back to everybody. That'd be good. All right, with that, we have new business. Is there any old business to entertain?
I've got one to know business. I'm pretty regular driving around these dump sites. Now, these fences is ridiculous. We either need to take them down or fix them. They're being, there's poles off from them, and wire being. Somebody just went down the whole side of that, and opened just about it over from Sawyer Street, where we got that green stuff, and bent the wire. It's not as, it's the best one of any of it. But Sweetwater's bad, Snowbird's bad, this down here is not too bad, Buffalo's bad. We either need to fix them or take the fences down on it, because that looks tacky as all get out. To have all that bent, mangled up stuff.
Do you have a recommendation? I mean, I know replacement, but do we have some fencing left somewhere? I think a lot of that.
That's down the Y'all Creek.
Where is that?
I think Donnie put it at yonder.
Is it?
I think, Randy, what you're saying, I think we need to have an assessment of what we got to get it, and we need to get that done. But we need to get it also swamped out, like you've been preaching for the last 3 years, getting it cleaned out around these things. What we can. I know there are things that we can't cut down, but that on Sweetwater needs cutting away.
Well,
I mean,
it needs at least half of this table, the stuff cut around the fence.
Yeah, to clean it off and access in and out.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the things we do. Well, can we do that then? Have a directive that we get, find out what we have in place and then make an estimate on how much it would take to get it cleaned up?
But I like Keith, that, see, all that from Yellow Creek, we had to take down when Tennessee Wildlife or whatever it was took over, so they give us so many restrictions, we had to take it down.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
so those is what's bad. Yeah, oh, they're being, that now, snowbird's been nearly down to the ground, when it goes in the door, people are running into.
Now, some of those are pretty high. We had trucks back into them. Garbage trucks.
Garbage truck.
Yeah.
There's trees on this stuff here, the sweet one.
Okay. All right, we do that.
Sweetwater's got a lot of problems.
Always good.
I did have one thing, on the fire that happened out at the impound. Out of 2 of the impound vehicles that were illegally impounded, we're up to $3,239.42 that we had to pay out of pocket.
Is that settled? Ooh, can we talk about that?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a public record, but there's one more vehicle we haven't paid, so that's the insurance we can't claim, so
Okay.
that's.
All right. Okay, any other old business? Have a motion that we go into closed session under GS 143-318.11A, 1, 3, and 6, privilege of confidential information, attorney-client privilege, personnel, and contracts. Have a motion, we have a second?
You asked him to stay.
Yes, I did, I got to see him for just a minute.
Oh.
May we have about a 5-minute recess? All right, we have a motion, we have a second, all approved?